Andy here from Andy's Quality Home Insulation, and I am of a building that was known as Forest Wool. And Forest Wool is the patented cellulose insulation, which is what I do as a living. I am an insulation contractor. You've seen me around with my work trailer here, insulating old homes in the Rochester and Monroe County area. So this was the factory where the insulation was made, known as Forest Wool. I personally knew they invented the cellulose insulation. It was Ken Hagen Jr., was the son of Ken Hagen Sr., who invented cellulose. And how he did it is he was a farmer. And he, his wife, and this other couple, after the harvest, they went to New York City on vacation. And they're walking through Central Park, and they saw some bums sleeping on the park benches with newspapers covering them over to keep warm. It was like a newspaper blanket. Idea snaps into his head. Goes back home and takes a bunch of newspaper and ran it through his hay shredding machine. And then he took it up into his attic space and spread the shredded newspaper over his bedroom, and he went to bed that night. Next morning he wakes up and his bedroom was warmer than the rest of the house. Created a whole industry, and just from that one idea has saved millions, billions and billions and billions of dollars, prevented global warming, you name it. So this is the old insulation here. And we're at number 1 Curlew Street, corner of Villa Street. And this is in Rochester, right near these railroad tracks here. And I used to park my work trailers out back here also. They let me rent space. Well, yeah, rented space to park my work trailers out here. And so here's a scale. And what they would early on is they would pay church groups and the Boy Scouts and anybody who could bring old newspapers in, and they were paying them $20 a ton. They would put it on the scale over here and then pay them whatever money it was, and then they would go and paper, I believe it was through that door over there, and then separated the magazines out of it and any other things that weren't good, and then they would put it in a mill, which is a hammer mill, I believe they call them, and they would pulverize the newspaper, and as they did it, they would add boric acid, boron, and gypsum to the shredded newspaper as fire retardants. By weight, if I remember correctly, by weight it's like 70% newspaper, and then the boric acid, boron, gypsum was the other 30% by weight. By volume, it's different. By volume, I think it was like close to 90% shredded newspaper and 10% boric acid, boron, gypsum, and fire retardants. Very safe material to have in your house. The wood in your house is 4 times more flammable than the blown-in insulation. So anyway, just being back here just reminds me of a whole bunch of things. You know, just storing our equipment, and this is where my crew would, we would meet, have coffee, get insulation, and then hit the road and insulate houses all over the Rochester and Monroe County area. One time, George Walker had a 1/8 stick of dynamite. A piece of dynamite was that long, about that big around, with a little fuse on it. And he said, we got to blow this off someplace. So we went back in the field here. Actually, it was a stone parking lot back